Have you ever wondered what it was like to live in a northern Italian town during the Middle Ages? Imagine streets teeming with people, smells that would make modern noses recoil, and danger lurking around every corner. One wrong step could mean disease, theft, or death, not just for you, but for your entire family. In this story, you will experience a day in the life of someone who tries to navigate such a town, where bandits roam freely, illnesses spread like wildfire, and every interaction carries the weight of life or death. Strap in, for a single day could erase everything you know. Before we start our story about a medieval northern Italian town, get into bed more comfortably, relax, you can turn on white noise in the background for more relaxation. Also, don't forget to support me with a like and a subscription. I'm always curious about where and at what time people are listening to me, write in the comments. Sweet dreams. The first light of dawn struggled to pierce through the thick haze that clung to the narrow streets. Smoke from cooking fires mingled with the fog rolling down from the nearby hills, turning the morning into a dull gray veil. The air was heavy with the scents of animals, unwashed bodies, and refuse left overnight in the corners of the town. You wake up in a cramped wooden room above a small bakery, the floorboards creaking under your weight. Your family is already stirring, your mother whispers hurried instructions while balancing a small bundle of bread dough in her hands. Your father, who is meant to take the morning shift at the marketplace, is already outside, squinting against the early light as he tries to avoid the puddles and filth that coat the streets. The town itself seems alive, but not in a comforting way. Merchants shout over each other, hawking grains, salted meats, and cheap cloth. Their faces are grimy, eyes darting nervously toward every shadow. Children run barefoot through the streets, laughing, unaware of the dangers that lurk in dark alleyways. Dogs bark, cats skulk, and the occasional pig trots along the cobblestones, nudging a discarded scrap of food with its snout. You step outside, feeling the chill of the morning air that seems to seep into your bones. The first thing you notice is the subtle but constant fear in everyone's movements. A man hurriedly closes the shutters of his shop as you pass, glancing over his shoulder. A group of older boys disappears around a corner, their laughter fading into hurried, whispered threats. These streets are not kind to strangers, nor to the familiar faces who must navigate them daily. As you walk toward the marketplace, your mind drifts to the rumors circulating in the town. Bandits have been spotted near the northern gate. A merchant claims a family lost everything when thieves broke into their home last night. Disease has been spreading from the river district, leaving several sick and some already dead. In a town this small, word travels quickly, and survival depends on knowing exactly when to move and when to hide. The marketplace is a cacophony of noise and smells. You notice a man coughing violently near a stall stacked with fresh produce. His face is pale, lips tinged with a sickly blue. Others whisper about him, crossing themselves as they move past, muttering prayers that his illness does not spread. You tighten your cloak around your shoulders, hoping the thin layer of fabric will protect you, though deep down, you know it likely won't. A sudden shout breaks your thoughts. Thief! Stop him! A young boy dashes through the crowd, clutching a stolen loaf of bread. Merchants yell, some chasing, some shaking their fists. In an instant, the crowd becomes chaotic, and you are pushed aside, narrowly avoiding a falling basket of apples that shatters against the cobblestones. This is how quickly danger can erupt here, and it doesn't take long for you to realize, survival in this town is not about strength alone but about wit, timing, and sometimes pure luck. You glance around, taking in the faces of those passing by. Many are gaunt, eyes sunken, cheeks smeared with soot or dirt. Life here leaves little room for rest or comfort. Even a single day could bring despair, an unexpected illness, a robbery, or worse. The thought lingers at the back of your mind as you move through the crowd, if you are not careful, you, and everyone you care for, might vanish from this world before the sun even reaches its peak. By mid-morning, the sun had risen enough to burn away the fog, but the streets remained grim and uneven. You move cautiously, your senses alert to every sound, the clatter of a cart over cobblestones, the distant bark of a dog, the whisper of footsteps behind you. In this town, the alleys are as dangerous as the open streets. Shadows can conceal anyone, from a desperate thief to a wandering murderer. You pass by a small fountain in the central square. Water trickles weakly from a cracked stone spout, and children squat nearby, filling their hands to drink. Their laughter seems naive, fragile, a brief defiance against the harshness surrounding them. But even here, danger lurks. Rumors claim that the fountain has been a site where sick individuals have spread disease, and yet the townsfolk continue to rely on it because fresh water is scarce. You glance around, deciding it is best not to linger. As you turn a corner, you notice a group of men huddled near a doorway. Their faces are half covered with hoods and scarves, and the glint of metal hints at knives tucked into their belts. They are young, fierce, and likely starving, a lethal combination. One of them steps forward, blocking your path. "You lost, stranger?" he asks, a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. You instinctively clutch your coin pouch closer, aware that even a small purse could mean death if stolen here. Negotiation is instinctive. You offer a polite nod, mumble a few words, and step aside without meeting their eyes. The tension is palpable. One wrong gesture, a sudden laugh, or even hesitation could provoke violence. They allow you to pass, laughing quietly behind their hands, their eyes still following your every move. This brief encounter leaves your heart pounding. You realize just how thin the line is between life and death in these alleys. Continuing on, you notice a small stall selling herbs and poultices. The woman behind the counter gestures frantically as she talks to another customer, her voice low. She is likely trying to sell remedies for the ongoing illnesses sweeping the town. You pause, tempted to buy something, but quickly recall that coins are precious and that such remedies often do little more than provide false hope. Instead, you make a mental note of where the stall is. Perhaps someone in your family will need it later. By now, the town is fully awake. Smoke rises from every chimney, and the scent of roasting meat mingles with the ever-present stench of unwashed bodies and refuse. You see a man stumble near a meat stall, coughing violently. Others give him a wide berth, whispering prayers or shaking their heads in fear. Disease is a silent predator here. Even the simplest interaction could carry contagion. Your stomach knots as you realize that the very air you breathe is a risk. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupts from the northern gate. Shouts of warning echo through the streets, and merchants hurriedly shutter their stalls. You hear rumors, bandits have been spotted, and the town guard is too few to respond immediately. Panic ripples through the crowd. Some clutch their belongings, others herded by the fear of imminent violence, dash toward their homes. You weigh your options, hide, flee, or confront the danger, and decide that moving cautiously along the side streets is safest. As you slip into a narrow lane, you realize the enormity of surviving here. Each day is a negotiation with chance, each moment a potential threat. Bandits, disease, and misfortune seem to conspire to make even a single day unbearable. And yet, life continues, because giving up is not an option. Every breath is a victory, every safe step a small triumph. But one misstep could erase all of it in an instant. The streets have grown busier as the sun climbs higher, yet the constant tension never eases. Merchants shout louder, trying to attract customers over the din of the crowd. The air is thick with dust, smoke, and the acrid scent of refuse. Your feet are sore from dodging carts and animals, but stopping is not an option. Every moment spent lingering increases the chances of danger. A commotion erupts at a nearby fruit stall. A man has grabbed a basket of pears without paying. The merchant yells, and soon a scuffle begins. The thief is young but wiry, darting through the crowd. People shout warnings, pushing and shoving to get out of the way. You barely avoid a flying apple, the thud against the cobblestones echoing like a gunshot. Instinctively, you hug the side of a building, letting others pass. Survival here requires constant awareness and split-second reactions. Even routine transactions feel perilous. A woman in a tattered dress approaches your path, coughing violently, her eyes red and watery. She reaches out for coins, begging for medicine or bread. You hesitate, the thought of contagion gnawing at your mind. Choosing to give her a coin feels dangerous, yet refusing feels cruel. Every interaction carries risk, health, wealth, or life itself. Turning down a narrow lane, you glimpse movement at the far end. A pair of bandits, their faces obscured by hoods, are harassing a merchant, demanding money and threatening with knives. You freeze, recognizing the futility of intervening. No matter how brave one might be, fighting them would almost certainly end badly. Instead, you duck into a shadowed doorway, heart hammering, hoping they do not notice you. The merchant pleads, his voice desperate, but your instincts shout, live to fight another day. As you continue, the scent of disease becomes more pronounced. Rats scurry along the edges of the alley, drawn to the stench of spoiled food. You step carefully, aware that even a single bite or scratch could transmit illness. In one corner, a child lies on a pile of rags, coughing weakly. Passers-by avert their eyes, murmuring prayers instead of offering help. Life here is harsh, but it is the norm. Compassion often comes second to self-preservation. The noon sun bears down, and the market's chaos shows no sign of abating. You notice groups of men whispering in corners, glancing around nervously. They are likely planning thefts or worse. One group eyes your coin pouch with subtle hunger, and you pull your cloak tighter, adjusting your pace to avoid drawing attention. Every glance, every movement is a potential trigger. Survival is not about strength, it is about cunning, speed, and the constant calculation of risk versus reward. The day feels endless, yet the dangers show no signs of stopping. Bandits, disease, and hunger are constant companions, waiting for the slightest lapse in judgment. Your thoughts drift to your family, huddled in their cramped home, relying on you to return safely. One wrong decision, one misstep, and all could be lost. In this town, even a single day is a trial by fire, testing every skill, every nerve, and every instinct you possess. By mid-afternoon, the sun casts harsh shadows that stretch across the uneven cobblestones. The town seems quieter now, but this silence is deceptive. In the Middle Ages, quiet often meant danger lurking just out of sight. You move cautiously, keeping close to the walls, aware that every alley and doorway could conceal a thief, or worse. A sudden shout pierces the air, a woman screams, clutching her chest as she collapses near a fountain. People scatter, unwilling to get close, fearing contagion or misfortune. You hesitate for a moment, torn between curiosity and self-preservation. In this town, stopping for too long could make you a target, whether of illness or of those who prey on the vulnerable. You skirt around her, heart pounding, and continue down the street. Narrow alleys reveal even greater threats. Trash piles up in corners, stagnant water breeds disease, and rats scurry over discarded scraps. You notice a group of young men huddled in the shadows, knives glinting in the sunlight. They watch everyone who passes with calculating eyes. One of them steps forward, blocking your path. The air thickens with tension. You realize that in a town like this, courage can be fatal if it is not matched by cunning. You quicken your pace, ducking into a side street that seems empty. The relief is brief. Ahead, you see the remnants of a struggle, a toppled cart, spilled grain, and a small pool of blood. Evidence of a robbery, perhaps, or an attack gone wrong. The town is unforgiving, even simple errands can turn deadly in seconds. You glance around, noting the faces of passers-by. Many are gaunt, eyes sunken, movements quick and nervous. Life here is a constant calculation, each step a negotiation with chance. Turning another corner, you pass a butcher's stall. The smell of raw meat is overwhelming, mixing with the stench of sweat and refuse. The butcher wipes his hands on a dirty rag, eyeing you with suspicion. Transactions are tense affairs, a merchant might be more dangerous than any bandit if provoked. You nod politely, drop a coin, and move on, aware that every interaction carries hidden risks. The afternoon wears on, and you notice more signs of illness. A child coughs violently, leaning against the wall for support. An elderly man stumbles, clutching his stomach. Disease spreads like wildfire in this crowded town, and there is little anyone can do. People avoid one another, crossing themselves or muttering prayers. You feel a shiver of fear. Exposure here could be fatal, and there is no hospital to offer aid. As the sun begins its descent, shadows lengthen, and the town takes on a more ominous tone. The streets empty slowly, but danger does not dissipate. Bandits retreat to plan their next attack, illness continues its silent march, and desperation simmers beneath every door and shutter. You realize that surviving here is not just about avoiding violence, it is about moving through the day without drawing attention, without making mistakes that could cost you everything. Even a single day demands vigilance, cunning, and a measure of luck. One false step, one misjudged glance, and the precarious balance of life in this medieval town could collapse in an instant. You quicken your steps, heading toward the safety of your home, knowing that every moment spent outside is a gamble against fate. As evening approaches, the town streets begin to empty. Shops close their shutters with heavy clanging, merchants hurry to secure their goods, and a tense quiet settles over the cobblestones. Yet even this quiet carries a sinister undertone. You know that bandits often strike at dusk, taking advantage of shadows and the fading light. You stick to the side streets, moving quickly but cautiously. Every alley looks the same, dark, narrow, and full of hidden dangers. A sudden noise, a falling tin, the rattle of a loose shutter, makes your heart leap. You freeze, straining your ears, but the sound fades. Still, the momentary panic reminds you how easily one misstep could be fatal in this town. Turning a corner, you spot a group of men lounging near a tavern entrance. Their eyes flick toward you, and instinctively, you hug the wall. One of them mutters something under his breath, a mixture of threat and amusement. They are young, but hardened by the harshness of life here, their knives visible in their belts. You press yourself against the stone wall, trying to make yourself seem smaller, less noticeable. Every step matters, one misjudged glance could provoke them. A sudden shout echoes from the main street. A merchant has caught a thief stealing a loaf of bread. Chaos erupts again, the clash of voices and hurried footsteps ringing in your ears. You seize the moment to slip past the men near the tavern, heart pounding. Their laughter and curses fade behind you, but the tension lingers. Each encounter like this serves as a reminder, in this town, survival often depends on being faster, quieter, and smarter than those who would see you harmed. As you continue, you notice signs of the town's ongoing struggles. Windows are barred with wooden shutters, some broken and poorly repaired. Doors are reinforced with extra nails or locks, evidence of repeated break-ins. Children peer from behind curtains, wide-eyed, learning early that danger is constant. Even a simple errand could expose you to illness, theft, or violence. The smell of smoke grows stronger, and you realize a fire has broken out in a small wooden dwelling. Smoke curls into the sky, black and acrid. Neighbors rush to fetch buckets of water, but the narrow streets make the effort slow and chaotic. You step aside, careful not to get caught in the crowd, observing the panic that ensues. In a town like this, disasters compound quickly, fire spreads, disease follows, and resources are scarce. By now, the sun is low, casting long shadows that turn every alley into a potential trap. You finally see your home in the distance, a small wooden building, modest and worn. Relief washes over you, though it is tempered by the knowledge that safety is temporary. In this town, a single day could undo all your efforts, tomorrow will bring the same threats, the same risks, and the same constant need for vigilance. You take a deep breath and step inside, grateful for a moment of shelter. Your family greets you with wary smiles, relieved to see you return unharmed. But even as you settle, you know that danger still surrounds you. The day may be ending, but survival in a medieval northern Italian town never truly takes a pause. Night falls quickly over the town, and with it comes a deceptive sense of calm. Streets that were chaotic during the day now seem eerily silent, but you know better. Darkness is a different kind of threat, bandits and desperate souls move more freely, and the unseen corners of the town conceal dangers your eyes cannot spot. Inside your small home, the atmosphere is tense but familiar. Your family huddles together, wary of even the creak of a floorboard or the wind rattling the shutters. The smell of cooked food is thin and modest: bread, a few vegetables, perhaps a bit of salted meat. You share what little you have, each bite a reminder of how fragile sustenance is in this town. Hunger is as much an enemy as disease or thieves. Through the thin walls, you can hear the distant howl of dogs, the clanging of a gate being secured, and muffled conversations that hint at trouble elsewhere. One of your neighbors whispers of a family taken by illness just a few streets over. Another speaks of a robbery near the marketplace that left 2 merchants dead. The town is alive with quiet horror, and the night does not promise safety. Your mind races as you consider the day's events. Every encounter, every risk you took, every corner you passed could have ended in tragedy. You remember the bandits in the alley, the sick woman by the fountain, the chaos of the marketplace. Survival is not just a matter of avoiding harm, it requires constant vigilance, knowledge of the streets, and sometimes sheer luck. A knock at the door startles you. Your father motions for silence. Through the small window, he sees a shadowed figure retreating down the lane. Relief mixes with lingering fear. In this town, strangers are rarely harmless, and even the briefest interaction could carry theft, violence, or disease. The door remains closed, and you all settle back into tense quiet. Even in the supposed safety of home, anxiety lingers. Your family exchanges whispers about tomorrow, what tasks must be done, what paths to avoid, who to trust. Each decision is weighed carefully, the wrong choice could bring catastrophe. Life in this medieval northern Italian town is not measured by days or years, but by hours and moments of cautious survival. You lay down to rest, listening to the sounds outside, the distant bark of a dog, the rustle of rats in the alleys, the faint murmur of prayers from a neighbor's home. Sleep comes in fits and starts, interrupted by imagined dangers and the memory of the day's hazards. One day here is enough to test every nerve, every instinct, every ounce of courage. And you know that tomorrow, the town will demand the same vigilance, the same cunning, and the same fragile hope for survival. The first light of morning barely touches the rooftops, casting long, pale shadows over the narrow streets. You awake to the sounds of the town stirring, wooden shutters creaking, carts rolling unevenly over cobblestones, and the murmur of neighbors preparing for the day. Sleep had been shallow, haunted by yesterday's dangers, and already you feel the tension building anew. Stepping outside, the air is damp and cold, carrying the faint stench of last night's fires and refuse. The marketplace is slowly coming alive. Merchants arrange their stalls, shouting quietly to one another, while early customers navigate the uneven streets. Even at this early hour, the threat of theft and violence hangs over every exchange. You walk cautiously, keeping to the edges of the streets, your senses alert to every movement. A group of ragged children run past, laughing despite the harshness surrounding them. Their innocence seems fragile, a fleeting defiance against the reality of the town. But your attention is drawn elsewhere. A man in a tattered cloak lurks near a corner, his hands hidden in his sleeves. Something about his posture sets your nerves on edge. Bandits do not always act immediately, sometimes they watch, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. You quicken your pace, heart hammering. The day begins with small, seemingly mundane tasks, but each carries risk. You pass a baker distributing bread, a merchant weighing grains, and a butcher preparing meat, all under the constant threat of robbery or illness. One misstep, one accidental brush against a sickly customer, could have consequences far worse than a lost coin. You remind yourself to move with precision and awareness. As you navigate through a narrow alley, you notice a door ajar, a rare lapse in the usual caution of the town. Inside, shadows move, and you catch a glimpse of a figure rifling through a chest. A sudden bang startles you, a rat or perhaps another thief. Your pulse quickens as you step back, careful not to make a sound. In this town, curiosity is dangerous, and ignorance sometimes the only shield. Meanwhile, rumors circulate quickly: sickness in the northern quarter, a theft near the eastern gate, a family moved suddenly from one home to another under suspicious circumstances. In a town this small, news spreads fast, and every story carries a warning. You tuck these tales into your mind, noting where danger might strike next. Survival depends on knowledge as much as speed. By mid-morning, the sun is higher, and the streets grow busier. You see the same patterns as before: merchants shouting, bandits watching, disease spreading silently. Each day is a repetition of hazards, each hour a test of vigilance. The town does not forgive mistakes, and even those who seem cautious can fall victim to its relentless dangers. Even after just a few hours, you understand the cruel rhythm of life here. Hunger, theft, illness, and violence are constants. Families cling together, moving carefully through the streets, each day a gamble that tomorrow will come without disaster. You take a deep breath, knowing that surviving even a single day in this medieval northern Italian town requires more than courage. It demands strategy, awareness, and a touch of luck. By late morning, you decide to make your way toward the river district, a part of town both vital and perilous. The river provides water, fish, and a place to wash clothes, but it also brings disease and criminals. People crowd the narrow banks, washing garments in the cold water, hauling small boats, or selling fish freshly caught. The scent is sharp, a mix of fish, mud, and human refuse, enough to make you gag if you breathe too deeply. The streets leading to the river are packed with townsfolk, each navigating carefully to avoid colliding with others or stepping into puddles thick with mud and debris. You notice a man stumble, coughing violently, and quickly move away. Illness spreads fast here, faster than the town guard can react. In a single encounter, you could contract something that might kill you or your family before the sun sets. Near the water, a small boy is being scolded by his mother for reaching too close to a barrel where fish are kept. His tiny hands are already sticky, his clothes stained with blood and scales. The scene strikes you as both ordinary and terrifying. Every day is full of such small dangers. Even children are at risk of falling victim to disease, accidents, or worse. You spot a shadow moving along the riverbank, a man with a knife tucked into his belt, eyes scanning the crowd. Bandits often target the river, knowing that people carry coins for trade or barter. You hug the side of the street, pretending to tie your shoe while keeping an eye on him. Every step must be calculated. Misjudgment could mean a stolen purse, or your life. A sudden commotion erupts further down the bank. Two merchants are arguing, and one brandishes a staff, threatening the other. The crowd around them grows tense, some trying to mediate, others ready to take advantage of the chaos. You slip quietly past, heart hammering. Violence in the river district is not uncommon. Desperate people take desperate measures when livelihoods are at stake. You glance at the river itself. Its water looks deceptively calm, but you know the hidden dangers it conceals. Rats swim along the edges, waste floats on the surface, and the current can sweep a careless child or adult away. Disease often rides the water, and townsfolk continue to use it because options are limited. Survival here is a constant negotiation with risk. As you make your way back from the river, your mind races with thoughts of the morning's dangers. Bandits, illness, accidents, all are ever present. Every day demands vigilance and cunning. You understand that even a brief moment of distraction could unravel everything, that life in this medieval northern Italian town is a delicate balance of strategy, luck, and awareness. The river district, bustling and perilous, is a stark reminder. The town may appear lively and industrious, but beneath its surface, danger never sleeps. You quicken your steps toward home, eager to see the familiar safety of your family, yet knowing that safety is always temporary. Returning from the river district, you take a less traveled route, hoping to avoid the growing crowds and potential trouble near the marketplace. The streets here are narrower, darker, and quieter, a deceptive calm that often hides those who would do you harm. The walls of the buildings are scarred with age, soot, and the occasional mark from past conflicts. Every step echoes, and you move carefully, aware that shadows can conceal more than just darkness. A sudden rustle from an alley catches your attention. You freeze. Two figures emerge, young men with hooded cloaks, eyes glinting with intent. Knives peek from their belts. Bandits often hunt in pairs, waiting for isolated travelers to become easy prey. Your heart races as you consider your options. Confrontation is almost certainly fatal, but running recklessly could draw attention and provoke them. You clutch your coin pouch tightly, adjusting your cloak to obscure it. Slowly, you step to the side, pressing against the wall, hoping to make yourself appear smaller, less noticeable. The men pause, studying you with a predator's patience. One steps forward, muttering something under his breath. You feign a stumble, dropping your gaze, an inch past. Every nerve in your body is taut, every sense alert. Luck carries you safely past, and you exhale only after you're a safe distance away. As you continue, the streets are littered with signs of desperation. A tipped-over cart holds spoiled vegetables, a man sits slumped against a wall, clutching his stomach in pain. Life here is precarious, and the town seems to remind you constantly that no one is truly safe. Illness, starvation, and theft are constant threats, shaping the rhythm of daily survival. You glance toward the marketplace and notice that some merchants are boarding up their stalls, others carrying goods hastily into their homes. Rumors of another attempted theft have spread. In a town like this, even a minor incident can ripple outward, causing fear and forcing everyone to adjust their routines. You understand that survival is about more than avoiding danger, it is about anticipating it, reading the patterns of those around you, and making careful decisions. Passing a small alley filled with discarded trash, you spot a rat scuttling across the stones. It disappears into a pile of refuse, a small reminder that disease is everywhere. Even a single bite or scratch could bring illness that spreads quickly through your household. You tighten your cloak and keep moving, aware that the day is far from over, and that hazards lurk at every turn. The narrow streets offer no comfort, no escape from the tension that coils tightly in your chest. The town may seem ordinary at first glance, but every alleyway, every doorway, every passerby carries potential threat. Surviving here demands constant vigilance, cleverness, and a relentless awareness of the dangers both seen and unseen. One misstep could undo all your efforts, leaving you and your family at the mercy of a cruel town that does not forgive mistakes. By early afternoon, the town bakes under the hot sun, and the streets shimmer with heat. Despite the sweltering air, danger remains constant, and the oppressive warmth only magnifies the tension. Every shadow, every movement, could hide a threat. Your pace quickens, not from urgency alone, but from the knowledge that a single distraction could be disastrous. You notice a group of men gathered near a narrow passageway. Their conversation is hushed, but the glint of metal at their belts is unmistakable. They are likely planning theft or worse. You press yourself close to the wall, moving silently, counting your steps, measuring each pause carefully. Survival here is about observation as much as speed. A momentary lapse could mean losing coins, possessions, or life itself. As you round the corner, a sudden commotion breaks out near a small stall selling vegetables. A thief has grabbed a basket and is running, chased by the merchant and a few townsfolk. The crowd surges in all directions, and you are jostled roughly. You stumble, narrowly avoiding a cart that tips over, spilling its contents onto the stones. Heart pounding, you regain balance, careful to stay unnoticed. Chaos in this town is contagious, even minor disturbances ripple outward, creating new hazards. You continue through a quieter lane, hoping to reach the relative safety of your home. The walls here are high, doors barred, and windows shuttered. Signs of previous break-ins are evident, scratches on doors, loose locks, and hastily patched holes. Even in your neighborhood, danger is never far. Bandits, desperate citizens, or stray animals could strike at any moment. A faint cry draws your attention to a nearby doorway. A child sits alone, clutching a ragged doll, eyes wide with fear. Their mother, you learn from overheard whispers, has fallen ill. Such scenes are not uncommon in this town, where illness spreads silently, and medical help is scarce. You feel a chill, reminded that survival is not just about avoiding violence, it is about navigating the hazards of sickness and scarcity as well. The streets are narrow, the sun relentless, and each step feels heavier than the last. Every passerby is a potential threat, every alley a possible trap. You remind yourself to stay alert, to move swiftly, and to avoid drawing attention. In a town like this, even a small mistake, a misplaced foot, a glance at the wrong person, can have catastrophic consequences. Finally, the familiar sight of your home comes into view. Relief surges through you, tempered by the knowledge that the day is far from over. Surviving the streets is only part of the struggle, the dangers of illness, hunger, and the constant threat of violence follow you inside, shaping every moment of daily life. In this medieval northern Italian town, even a single day is a test of courage, wits, and unyielding vigilance. By mid-afternoon, the streets have grown crowded again. Merchants' shouts blend into a constant roar, mixing with the bleating of goats, barking dogs, and the occasional clash of metal. Every passerby is jostling, bumping into one another, and in the chaos, pickpockets find easy targets. You clutch your coin pouch tightly, aware that even a single distraction could leave you destitute. A cart overloaded with grain barrels lumbers down the street. The driver yells warnings, but some townsfolk don't move fast enough. The cart wobbles dangerously, and a barrel tips, spilling its contents into the dirt. People stumble to avoid it, shouting in frustration and fear. The incident is minor in terms of injury, but it illustrates how quickly ordinary tasks can become hazardous. Life in this town is fragile, and fortune is a fickle ally. You notice a man slumped against a wall, his clothes soaked with sweat and grime. He coughs violently, drawing wary glances from others. Disease spreads silently and swiftly here, and exposure is a constant worry. Even the simplest errands, buying bread, fetching water, or passing through a street, could bring you into contact with illness that might kill you or your family. Survival is as much about avoiding sickness as it is about avoiding thieves. Further down, two men argue violently over a stall. Their quarrel escalates quickly, hands moving toward weapons hidden in their cloaks. The surrounding crowd steps back, fear in their eyes. Violence erupts suddenly, a reminder that even familiar streets can turn dangerous without warning. You press yourself close to the wall, moving past as cautiously as a shadow, heart racing. Small acts of vigilance make the difference between life and death. You glance into alleyways before stepping through them, keep your eyes on the crowd to detect potential pickpockets, and note where bandits might lurk. Each moment is a calculation, each step a test of attention and reflex. The town does not forgive mistakes, it rewards only those who remain alert, cautious, and quick. As the afternoon wears on, the sun casts long shadows that twist through the streets, creating hiding places for thieves and criminals. You remind yourself that the day is not over and that danger still lurks around every corner. Survival in a medieval northern Italian town requires constant vigilance, careful observation, and the instinct to move swiftly without drawing attention. One false step could undo everything you've worked for in a single heartbeat. Late afternoon brings no relief. The sun hangs low, casting the town in a harsh, golden light that exaggerates every shadow. Streets that were chaotic now feel oppressive, as if the walls themselves are closing in. You move carefully, acutely aware that the day's dangers are far from over. Bandits, thieves, and the unseen threat of disease remain ever present. A sudden cry shatters the uneasy calm. A man stumbles from a side street, clutching his chest and coughing violently. Passers-by step around him, crossing themselves or muttering prayers, unwilling to help. Illness spreads like wildfire in this town, and even brief contact can be deadly. You tighten your cloak, aware that the air itself might carry danger. Further along, you notice a group of hooded figures near a doorway. They whisper, eyes darting to each passerby. Knives glint under their sleeves. These are experienced bandits, waiting for someone to become careless. You hug the wall, taking slow, deliberate steps to avoid drawing attention. Every movement matters, one mistake could mean robbery or worse. The market square is quieter than usual, but the tension is palpable. Merchants hastily close their stalls, securing goods against potential theft. A barrel tipped over by an earlier cart still lies in the street, a reminder of how quickly chaos can arise. People hurry by, clutching possessions and glancing nervously at every shadow. The town is a place where vigilance is survival, and even the briefest lapse can be fatal. Passing a narrow alley, you catch sight of a child coughing against a wall. A mother nearby tries to comfort the child, but fear and exhaustion are etched into her face. Disease does not discriminate, it strikes the young, the old, and the weary alike. You shiver, reminded that in this town, safety is fleeting, and life is fragile. As the sun dips lower, shadows stretch and twist through the streets, creating hiding places for both human predators and other hazards. You quicken your pace, eager to reach home before darkness brings new threats. Every step, every glance, is measured. Survival here is not merely about avoiding immediate danger, it is about anticipating what might come next, understanding the rhythms of the town, and moving with both caution and purpose. Returning home, you feel a brief sense of relief, but it is tempered by the knowledge that the town's dangers never truly sleep. Tomorrow will bring new threats, and the day's fragile victories are merely temporary reprieves in a world where one misstep can erase all progress in an instant. In this medieval northern Italian town, survival is a delicate dance between luck, skill, and constant vigilance. The next morning begins like any other, with mist hanging low over the streets and the faint smell of smoke and refuse drifting from alleyways. You need to make your way across town quickly to fetch supplies, but the main streets are crowded and unpredictable. A shortcut through a narrow lane seems faster, but it is riskier, its shadows are deeper, and the walls are covered with grime and signs of previous break-ins. As you enter the alley, the noise of the main streets fades. The quiet is heavy, almost suffocating. Rats scuttle along the edges, and puddles of stagnant water glint under the faint light. The air smells damp and unpleasant. You keep your eyes peeled, aware that shortcuts often hide unseen dangers. Bandits prefer such lanes, where victims have nowhere to flee, and there is no one to witness a crime. Halfway down, a figure steps out from the shadows. A young man, face partially obscured by a hood, blocks your path. You sense the tension immediately, his stance is relaxed, but the knife at his side tells another story. Your heart races as you calculate your options. Running could provoke him, confrontation is dangerous, and standing still is just as risky. Survival requires both courage and cunning in moments like these. You speak quietly, lowering your gaze while taking careful steps to the side. The man watches, his expression unreadable. Slowly, deliberately, you inch past, keeping your movements fluid and non-threatening. Every nerve is alert, every instinct sharp. By the time you are safely out of the alley, your pulse is still racing. This is the nature of life here, danger can strike at any time, even in the briefest moments of routine. Further along, the streets become more familiar, but hazards persist. Merchants argue over prices, children dart across the lanes without warning, and the sick shuffle along, coughing and groaning. You pass a small stall where a woman tries to sell herbs and poultices, her hands shaking. She eyes you warily, aware that trust is a scarce commodity in this town. Every interaction carries risk, physical, financial, or even biological. As you approach the central square, a sudden shout diverts your attention. A theft is in progress, a young boy has grabbed a loaf of bread and is sprinting away, chased by an angry merchant. Chaos erupts, carts tip, and people stumble. You slip to the side, narrowly avoiding being caught in the commotion. Even a simple walk across town can become a test of agility, awareness, and luck. By the time you reach your destination, your mind is exhausted from constant vigilance. Each shortcut, each street, each interaction is a potential threat. In a medieval northern Italian town, survival is a continuous exercise in awareness, anticipation, and careful navigation. One wrong decision can undo all of your efforts in a heartbeat, reminding you that life here is fragile and fleeting. By late morning, you venture toward the sickly quarter of town, a section notorious for disease and poor sanitation. The streets here are narrow and winding, lined with buildings that lean precariously toward one another. The air is thick with the smell of stagnant water, refuse, and sickness. Every breath feels heavy, and you instinctively cover your nose with the edge of your cloak. You pass by a man bent over in pain, clutching his stomach as he coughs violently. Nearby, children with pale faces play quietly, unaware of the invisible threat lingering around them. Disease here spreads like wildfire, even a brief encounter could bring illness that decimates an entire household. You quicken your pace, aware that time spent here is inherently dangerous. A group of merchants huddle near a shuttered shop, whispering anxiously about recent deaths. They glance around nervously, as if the shadows themselves might snatch them. The town's precarious balance between survival and disaster is evident in every face, every gesture. You realize that even ordinary citizens are constantly calculating risk, never fully relaxing, always alert. Further down, a small child lies on a pile of rags, crying weakly. The mother huddles nearby, desperate and exhausted, unable to provide relief. Your heart aches at the sight, but survival in this town is a cold calculation. Stopping to help might put you in danger, especially if illness spreads. You glance away, keeping your eyes on the path ahead, knowing that every moment counts. You hear footsteps behind you and glance over your shoulder. A pair of men linger in the alley, knives at their belts, eyes scanning for easy prey. Bandits often exploit the sickly quarter, knowing residents are weak, distracted, and vulnerable. You hug the wall, taking slow, careful steps to avoid drawing attention, your pulse quickening with every breath. By the time you leave the sickly quarter, your cloak is damp with sweat, and your mind is exhausted. The streets, the people, the invisible dangers, it is a constant battle to navigate them safely. You realize again that surviving even a single day in this medieval northern Italian town requires vigilance, speed, cunning, and a measure of luck. One misstep could undo hours of careful navigation in an instant. By midday, the market is in full swing again. Merchants shout to attract customers, carts rattle over uneven cobblestones, and animals weave through the throng. The heat of the day is intense, the smells overwhelming: raw meat, stale bread, rotting vegetables, and the ever-present stench of refuse. Every step requires attention. Even a small stumble could bring injury or draw unwanted attention. A commotion erupts near a vegetable stall. A man tries to snatch a basket of produce, and the merchant lunges to stop him. Shouts echo through the market, and the crowd surges in panic. You are jostled and pushed, narrowly avoiding a falling crate of apples. Survival here is as much about awareness as it is about speed. One false move can turn deadly in an instant. You notice a sickly woman standing to the side, coughing and pale. People step around her, afraid of contagion, murmuring prayers instead of offering help. Disease spreads quickly in this environment. One careless touch, one shared coin, and illness could follow you home, affecting your family. You keep your distance, moving carefully to avoid the invisible threat. Bandits lurk as well, watching for opportunities. A young man with a hooded cloak slips between stalls, eyes flicking toward coin purses and bags. You instinctively hug the wall, pretending to examine a stall while keeping him in sight. Survival depends on constant vigilance. Even a moment's distraction can result in robbery or worse. The market is also a place of strategy. You observe which merchants are busy, which alleys are less crowded, and which faces seem suspicious. Every detail matters. You weave through the chaos, counting your steps, watching the shadows, and planning your route carefully. Each movement is deliberate, calculated to minimize risk. By the time you leave the market, your nerves are frayed, and your pulse still races. Even routine errands have become trials of awareness and caution. In this medieval northern Italian town, life is fragile, and every day is a continuous challenge. One mistake, one miscalculation, could undo hours of careful survival in an instant. The afternoon sun beats down relentlessly, and the streets shimmer with heat. You decide to take a narrow alley back toward your home, hoping to avoid the crowded main thoroughfares. The lane is shadowed and quiet, but that very quiet fills you with unease. In a town like this, silence can mean danger. Bandits, thieves, or desperate townsfolk could be lurking just out of sight. Halfway down the alley, you hear the faint rustle of movement. Two figures step from the shadows, knives glinting under the sun. Bandits often patrol these narrow lanes, knowing that isolated travelers are easier targets. Your heart hammers in your chest as you calculate your options. Confrontation would be foolish, running blindly could provoke them. Survival depends on wits, patience, and timing. You slow your pace, keeping your gaze lowered, and hug the wall. Each step is deliberate, every motion calculated to avoid provoking the men. One of them mutters something under his breath, watching you intently. You feign disinterest, pretending to inspect a crack in the wall while inching past. The minutes stretch unbearably, but by the time you reach the alley's end, the bandit's attention has moved elsewhere. Relief floods you, though your pulse is still racing. Further along, signs of the town's dangers remain evident. A tipped-over cart, scattered refuse, and the distant cough of a sickly resident remind you that threats are constant, whether human or biological. Every step outside the safety of home is a negotiation with chance, a test of reflexes, and an exercise in awareness. As you reach the familiar streets near your home, the crowd thickens again. Merchants close their stalls, and townsfolk hurry to their homes. Even the familiar paths carry hazards, children darting across streets, carts moving unpredictably, and opportunistic thieves. You move carefully, mindful that one misstep could undo all your efforts to survive the day. Finally, you see your home ahead. The sight brings temporary relief, but you know that safety is fleeting. Bandits, illness, and accidents remain outside, waiting for a lapse in vigilance. In this medieval northern Italian town, surviving even a single day requires constant awareness, careful planning, and a measure of luck. One mistake, and the fragile thread of life could snap in an instant. Evening descends slowly over the town, painting the streets in long, distorted shadows. The sunlight fades, leaving a dim, uneven light that makes every alleyway seem darker and more dangerous. You step cautiously, aware that bandits often take advantage of the dusk, knowing the streets are quieter and fewer eyes are watching. You pass a collapsed cart, its contents, barrels of grain, spilled across the stones. The remnants of an earlier scuffle or misfortune, it serves as a stark reminder, accidents and violence are common here, and one small error could prove fatal. Your feet crunch over debris, careful not to draw attention or stumble. Each sound feels amplified in the evening hush. A group of men huddle near a tavern entrance. Hoods drawn, knives tucked into belts, they watch passers-by with a predator's patience. You hug the wall, pretending to adjust your cloak, taking slow, deliberate steps to avoid notice. Survival here is less about strength and more about perception, reading intentions, anticipating movement, and staying calm under pressure. The smell of smoke drifts from a nearby hearth. Someone's home is burning, perhaps an accident, perhaps arson. Townsfolk rush past, some grabbing water, others watching helplessly. Fires can spread quickly in these tightly packed streets, destroying not only homes but also lives. You note the scene briefly and move on, knowing that lingering could make you a target or trap you in harm's way. Even in the waning light, illness is present. A woman coughs violently against a wall, clutching her chest, while children peer from doorways. Disease spreads silently, and proximity is dangerous. You cover your nose and keep your distance, moving quickly yet carefully. Every step, every breath, carries risk. Finally, the familiarity of your home draws near. Relief mingles with caution, the streets are never truly safe, and tomorrow will bring another day of constant calculation. In this medieval northern Italian town, life is fragile, and even brief moments of carelessness can have lasting consequences. Survival is a delicate balance of awareness, timing, and a touch of luck. One misstep could erase hours of careful navigation in an instant. The sun sinks low, painting the narrow streets in long, distorted shadows that seem to move and twist with a life of their own. The warmth of the day fades, replaced by a chilling dampness that creeps through the cracks in the uneven cobblestones. Every step you take feels heavier than the last, your senses stretched to their limits. In this town, evening brings a new kind of danger, one that cannot be fought with speed or strength alone. Bandits, desperate souls, and the lingering threat of disease all wait silently in the shadows, ready to strike at the slightest moment of carelessness. You navigate a familiar alley, now cloaked in darkness. The walls are scarred with years of neglect, plaster crumbles, wood rots, and deep cracks run like veins through the buildings. A rat scurries past, disappearing into a pile of refuse. You pause, your ears straining for the faintest sound, a whisper of movement, the creak of a shutter, the distant bark of a dog. In a town like this, silence is never truly safe. The unseen can be more dangerous than what is visible. Ahead, you see a figure leaning against a doorway. His hood is pulled low, concealing his face, and a knife glints in the dying light. He watches the street with deliberate patience. You recognize the posture, he is a predator, waiting for someone careless to pass. Your heart hammers in your chest, every instinct screaming to retreat, but retreating too hastily could draw attention. You hug the wall, shifting your weight quietly, pretending to examine a crack in the stone. Each step is calculated, every motion deliberate. A single wrong move could end in violence, or worse, death. The faint smell of smoke drifts through the air, carried from a nearby home. Someone's hearth has caught fire, or perhaps it is worse, arson in a town where disputes and grudges can escalate quickly. People rush by with buckets of water, some calling out warnings, others simply watching helplessly. Fires spread rapidly here. In a tightly packed town, one careless spark can destroy entire homes, leaving families destitute. You keep your distance, noting exits and escape routes as you move on. Awareness is your shield, but it cannot protect you from every hazard. Even the air itself carries danger. A woman coughs violently against a wall, clutching her chest. Her skin is pale, her lips tinged with blue. Children peek from behind shutters, their eyes wide with fear and curiosity. Disease spreads silently, invisible yet deadly, and proximity to the sick can bring calamity to your family. You adjust your cloak to cover your nose and mouth, quickening your pace without drawing attention. Each breath, each movement, is measured to reduce risk. The street opens slightly, offering a glimpse of the town square, where the last light of day struggles to reach between buildings. The square is almost empty now, except for a few lingering merchants securing their stalls and a man dragging a wounded animal across the cobblestones. Even here, danger remains. Bandits often patrol the edges, knowing the sparse crowd is easier to target. You keep close to the walls, moving silently, constantly aware of each shadow, each sound. Survival is not about courage alone, it is about perception, calculation, and a relentless attention to detail. By the time you near your home, exhaustion weighs heavily on your limbs and mind. The streets have been perilous all day, and the shadows of evening have tested every instinct, every ounce of vigilance. You glance back briefly, noting the alleys and doorways that conceal potential threats. Relief is tempered by the knowledge that tomorrow will bring the same dangers, and that life here is a fragile balance of luck, skill, and awareness. In a medieval northern Italian town, even the simplest tasks, walking home, fetching water, passing through a street, require constant calculation. One mistake, one lapse in attention, could undo hours of careful survival in an instant. You step inside your home, closing the door behind you. The walls offer temporary shelter, but not safety. Your family greets you with wary smiles, knowing the day's dangers are far from over. Outside, the town continues to breathe its mixture of chaos, disease, and violence, indifferent to individual struggle. And even within the supposed sanctuary of home, the threats linger: illness, hunger, the distant echoes of conflict. Each day is a relentless test of cunning, speed, and awareness, and even brief complacency can prove fatal. You settle into a corner, listening to the night, aware that survival is never guaranteed. The town sleeps only partially, its shadows move, and its dangers wait. Night deepens over the medieval town, and with it comes a suffocating stillness that feels almost unnatural. The streets, once filled with the noise of merchants, carts, and children, are now empty and shadowed. Yet the absence of sound does not mean safety. Darkness in this town is a different kind of threat, one that moves silently, patiently, and without warning. Bandits, desperate residents, and unseen dangers roam freely where the sun no longer reaches. Every alley and doorway could conceal a predator or a misfortune waiting to strike. You step carefully along the cobblestones, the soles of your shoes barely making a sound. The narrow streets are dimly lit by the occasional torch or flickering candle from a shuttered window. Shadows stretch and warp in the firelight, and every movement seems amplified in the quiet. You pause, listening to the subtle creak of a shutter, the rustle of rats scuttling along refuse-strewn edges, and the distant barking of dogs. Each sound could signal a threat, or it could be a false alarm, yet ignoring even the smallest hint of danger could be deadly. Ahead, you notice two figures leaning against a wall, speaking in hushed tones. The glow from a nearby lamp reflects off the knife at one of their belts. Bandits wait in such positions, knowing the evening offers cover and isolation. Your pulse quickens, but panic would be fatal. You hug the wall, shifting silently, keeping your movements smooth and measured. Each step, each breath, is calculated to avoid drawing attention. A sudden jerk or misstep could provoke them, and in a town like this, confrontation rarely ends well. The air carries a sharp odor of smoke. One of the nearby homes has caught fire, or perhaps a hearth has been left unattended. People rush with buckets of water, some shouting, others standing frozen in fear. Fire in this tightly packed area spreads quickly, endangering homes, possessions, and lives alike. You keep your distance, observing escape routes and plotting a safe path forward. Awareness is as much a weapon as speed or strength in this town, every detail could determine survival. Even illness is a constant companion in the streets. A woman coughs violently against a wall, clutching her chest, while her child hides behind her skirts. Pale faces and sunken eyes are everywhere, a grim reminder that the town teems not only with human predators but also with invisible ones. A fleeting contact could bring sickness home, decimating your family. You adjust your cloak to cover your nose and mouth, moving as swiftly as you dare without drawing attention. The risk of contagion adds a new layer of danger to every step outside. As you near a small square, the shadows seem deeper, more complex, and every alley leading from it looks like a potential trap. Merchants securing the last of their goods, stray animals, and a few lingering townsfolk create a chaotic tableau. The square is a crossroads of potential threats, even in an open space, vulnerability is high. You move along the edges, hugging walls, noting exits and hidden spaces. One miscalculation could result in robbery, injury, or worse. Survival in this environment is a constant balance of perception, caution, and calculated movement. Finally, the familiar sight of your home comes into view. Relief washes over you, but it is tempered by the knowledge that shelter offers only temporary safety. The dangers of the town, bandits, disease, fires, accidents, remain ever present. Your family greets you warily, knowing the evening's threats are far from over. You close the door behind you, taking a moment to breathe, aware that the walls around you are only a fragile barrier. Even here, within the supposed safety of home, vigilance cannot fully rest. Night in a medieval northern Italian town does not sleep. Its shadows move, its dangers wait, and survival depends on alertness, strategy, and a measure of luck that is never guaranteed. The sounds of the town at night, the distant shuffle of footsteps, the barking of dogs, the rustle of animals, the whisper of wind through narrow streets, serve as a constant reminder, you are never truly safe. The hours stretch on, and each one demands attention, calculation, and careful planning for tomorrow. Life here is fragile, and even a single lapse in awareness can undo everything in an instant. In a town like this, survival is never permanent, it is an ongoing, exhausting exercise in vigilance and adaptability. Night has fully descended over the medieval town, and a heavy silence blankets the narrow streets. The hustle and clatter of the day have faded, replaced by the subtle, unsettling noises of a town that never truly sleeps. The wind whispers through the cracks in walls, carrying the scent of smoke, refuse, and stagnant water. Every step along the uneven cobblestones is a reminder that danger is never far away. Even the familiar paths home are fraught with risk, for darkness amplifies every shadow, every sound, and every movement into a potential threat. You walk cautiously, hugging the walls of the alleyways. Your footsteps are light, measured, careful not to draw attention. In a town like this, vigilance is as crucial as courage. A misstep, a stumble, or even a glance at the wrong person could provoke violence or theft. Two figures lurk ahead, partially obscured by shadows. Knives glint in the faint light of a nearby torch. Bandits often wait in the evening hours, preying on those moving alone or those who appear distracted. You slow your pace, taking care to appear as ordinary as possible, a shadow among shadows. A sudden clatter from a nearby street sends your heart racing. A cart tipped over in the darkness, its contents spilling across the cobblestones, creates a minor chaos. The noise draws attention, and you duck behind a barrel, waiting for the moment to continue safely. Even seemingly mundane accidents can turn deadly here. The town's residents are constantly on edge, and even a small disturbance can escalate rapidly, drawing both human and environmental hazards into play. The air is thick with the odor of illness. A woman leans against a wall, her body trembling as she coughs violently, clutching her chest. A child hides behind her skirts, eyes wide and fearful. Disease runs rampant in these streets, invisible yet deadly. Even brief proximity can mean weeks of suffering or death for you or your family. You cover your face with the edge of your cloak and proceed slowly, aware that every breath carries risk. Survival is as much about avoiding illness as it is about avoiding theft or violence. Passing a narrow side street, you spot a young boy trying to steal a loaf of bread. He moves quickly, but the merchant's shout sends him scattering into the darkness. The chase disrupts the quiet, causing a ripple of tension through the surrounding alleyways. You duck closer to the wall, careful not to be noticed. The town's chaos is unpredictable, and even incidental events can quickly turn dangerous. One must always anticipate the movements of others, reading intentions and preparing to respond instantly. You reach a crossroads in the town, where the main street intersects with two alleys that disappear into darkness. The square is nearly empty now, lit only by a few flickering torches. Shadows pool in the corners, hiding potential threats. A stray dog prowls nearby, and you instinctively step aside, knowing that animals can trigger attention or accidents. Every movement is a calculation, every glance a check against unseen dangers. Here, in the midst of ordinary life, survival is an ongoing test of perception, strategy, and reflexes. Finally, your home appears at the end of a narrow lane. The familiar structure brings a small measure of relief, but it is fleeting. The town outside continues to breathe, indifferent to individual struggles. Fires may flare elsewhere, bandits may roam, and disease may lurk in the air, waiting for careless moments. You step inside, closing the door carefully, and breathe a little easier. Yet even within these walls, the dangers of the day linger, unseen yet persistent. Survival in a medieval northern Italian town is never guaranteed, it is a continuous, exhausting balance of caution, awareness, and fortune. The night stretches on, each hour filled with vigilance and anxiety. Every sound outside, the shuffle of feet, the faint clatter of objects, the barking of dogs, the rustling of animals, reminds you that the world beyond your home is unpredictable, harsh, and unforgiving. Sleep comes fitfully, if at all, as your mind replays the day's hazards and anticipates the next day's trials. In this town, life is measured not by years or months, but by moments of survival, and every single day is a testament to endurance, strategy, and relentless awareness. Midnight descends over the town, and the streets are nearly empty, yet danger remains omnipresent. The darkness transforms familiar alleyways into corridors of threat, where a single step could lead to disaster. The faint light of torches flickers, casting long, uncertain shadows that twist and warp along the walls. Even in the quietest streets, movement can hide bandits, desperate townsfolk, or the stray animals that carry disease and mischief alike. You move cautiously, every sense alert, knowing that vigilance is more crucial now than ever. A sudden scuffle echoes from a nearby alley. Two men are grappling, one attempting to steal a pouch from the other. The noise is brief but sharp, enough to raise your pulse and force you to press yourself against the wall. In a town like this, even minor disturbances can quickly escalate into lethal encounters. The streets are narrow, providing little room to maneuver, and no help will arrive in time if things go wrong. You inch forward carefully, avoiding the scene, and remind yourself that survival often means choosing to avoid conflict entirely. The air is heavy with the scents of the town, smoke from hearth fires, refuse from the streets, and the lingering tang of disease. A sickly cough reaches your ears, and you see a woman slumped against a doorway, her child huddled beside her. Illness spreads silently and swiftly, a single misstep could mean carrying contagion home to your family. You cover your mouth with the edge of your cloak and move quietly past, every step deliberate. Even at night, the invisible threats are as dangerous as the visible ones. A rat scurries across the stones, startling you briefly. It disappears into a pile of trash, a reminder that vermin are everywhere, carrying both disease and the unpredictable danger of tripping or startling someone nearby. The streets are cluttered with debris, overturned carts, spilled barrels, and broken crates, all remnants of the day's chaos. Each obstacle requires attention, one careless step could result in injury or draw unwanted attention. Survival depends on awareness, not just of people, but of every physical hazard that might seem insignificant but could become deadly. As you turn a corner, you notice a hooded figure leaning against a wall. His knife glints faintly in the torchlight. Bandits exploit the night, knowing that fear and darkness are allies in their schemes. You press close to the wall, adjusting your pace and movements to appear as ordinary as possible. A single misstep, a careless glance, or a hasty action could provoke him, and you are painfully aware that fighting is rarely an option. Caution and observation are your only tools. Further down the street, you see the remnants of an overturned cart. Barrels of vegetables lie scattered, crushed and rotting. The smell is pungent and the sight is a stark reminder of how quickly disorder can arise. Even in an empty street, the town feels alive with hazard. Fires might flare elsewhere, bandits might strike from hidden alleys, and disease waits silently in the night air. Your mind catalogues every possible threat, every route to safety, and every escape plan. By the time you reach the familiar lane leading to your home, relief is tempered with unease. Darkness has not diminished the town's dangers, it has transformed them. Your home's door offers a temporary refuge, but the threats outside continue. Bandits, illness, and accidents persist, waiting for even the briefest lapse in awareness. Inside, your family sleeps uneasily, knowing that survival in this town is never permanent, never guaranteed. The night is long, and every hour demands calculation, observation, and a readiness to act. One careless moment can undo hours of careful vigilance, proving that in a medieval northern Italian town, survival is never simple, never easy, and always precarious. The town at midnight is a place where ordinary routines transform into a gauntlet of threats. Shadows stretch long across the cobblestones, twisting and merging into shapes that seem alive. Every alleyway, doorway, and corner hides potential predators, bandits, desperate men, or opportunistic thieves waiting for a moment of distraction. Even the familiar streets seem alien under the cloak of night, each step demanding calculated precision. As you move cautiously through a narrow lane, the faint glimmer of a knife catches your eye. A man leans against the wall, hood drawn low, eyes scanning for easy prey. You press yourself against the opposite wall, pretending to adjust your cloak while measuring every movement. In this town, confrontation is rarely survivable, avoidance and observation are the true tools of survival. Every heartbeat, every breath, is a reminder of how precarious your position is. The quiet is punctuated by sudden noises, the rustle of rats through trash, a distant shout, the clang of a shutter swinging in the wind. Each sound triggers heightened awareness. The town's hazards are both visible and invisible, thieves and bandits, disease lingering in the air, and hidden physical dangers in the form of debris, uneven stones, and overturned carts. One misstep could result in theft, injury, or even death. You move with deliberate care, eyes constantly scanning, feet landing lightly yet firmly on the cobblestones. A faint smell of smoke drifts through the air. One of the nearby homes has caught fire, or perhaps a hearth has been left unattended. Flames can spread rapidly through the tightly packed streets, consuming homes, possessions, and lives in minutes. Townsfolk rush past with buckets of water, shouting and scrambling. You stay close to the walls, noting escape routes and keeping your distance from potential hazards. Awareness is your greatest weapon, it allows you to navigate the dangers without drawing attention. Illness remains an invisible threat. A woman coughs violently in a doorway, pale and trembling, while her child clings to her skirts. The air is thick with contagion, and one careless moment could carry sickness home to your family. You adjust your cloak to cover your mouth and nose, moving swiftly but cautiously, recognizing that proximity to disease is as deadly as human predators. Every breath, every step, carries risk, making each movement a deliberate negotiation with survival itself. You pass an overturned cart, its barrels spilled and rotting on the cobblestones. The debris is both a visual reminder and a practical hazard. One wrong step could result in injury or draw unwanted attention from lurking bandits. Rats scuttle over the mess, adding another layer of danger. Even in seemingly empty streets, the town's unpredictability keeps you on constant alert. The night amplifies these hazards, making familiar paths unfamiliar and routine tasks perilous. As you approach a small square, the faint glow of torches illuminates the last remaining pedestrians. Merchants secure the final goods of the day, some hurrying home, others lingering nervously. Even in an open space, the risk is high. Bandits wait along the edges, observing, calculating, and ready to strike. You keep close to the walls, moving with deliberate stealth, scanning every shadow, and planning every step. Survival in this town is not determined by strength but by awareness, adaptability, and the ability to anticipate danger before it appears. Finally, the sight of your home offers a temporary reprieve. Relief is tempered by the knowledge that the dangers outside are constant, patient, and relentless. Bandits, disease, and accidents do not sleep, they merely wait. You step inside, closing the door with care, heart still pounding from the vigilance required to navigate even a few streets safely. The night stretches on, and even within the home, safety is provisional. In this medieval northern Italian town, life is fragile, and survival depends on constant attention, calculation, and a measure of luck that can never be guaranteed. Each day and night is a test, each moment a reminder that even minor lapses can prove fatal. The town streets are silent now, but silence is deceptive. Midnight has brought an eerie stillness, and the darkness twists familiar paths into corridors of potential danger. Every shadow could hide a bandit, every alley a trap. Even the softest sounds, the shuffle of rats, a door creaking in the wind, the distant bark of a dog, set your nerves on edge. In this medieval northern Italian town, night is not a time for rest, it is a gauntlet where vigilance is life itself. You navigate a narrow street lined with old, leaning buildings. The air is thick with the smells of refuse, smoke, and stagnant water. Your feet barely make a sound on the uneven cobblestones. The knowledge that bandits often patrol these lanes at night keeps every sense alert. You pass a shadowed corner and notice a figure leaning against the wall, hood drawn low. A knife glints faintly in the torchlight. One false move could provoke him, and in a town like this, confrontation is rarely survivable. You hug the opposite wall, adjusting your cloak to appear ordinary, your movements calculated to avoid attention. The night air carries the invisible threat of disease. A woman leans against a doorway, coughing violently, her child pressed against her side. Even a brief encounter could bring contagion home to your family. You cover your mouth and nose, moving deliberately to maintain distance. Survival depends on awareness of both visible and invisible hazards. Each breath, each step, is measured. In this town, even the ordinary act of walking carries risk. A faint scuffle ahead draws your attention. Two men grapple over a coin purse, the noise startling and sudden. You duck behind a barrel, waiting for the moment to continue. In a town filled with human predators, a distraction can quickly turn deadly. Even minor disturbances create chaos, offering both opportunity and threat. You inch forward carefully, aware that the smallest misstep could result in robbery, injury, or death. The uneven streets themselves are hazardous. An overturned cart lies half in the street, barrels crushed and spilling into the dirt. Rats scurry over the debris, adding danger and unpredictability. You navigate around it, each step deliberate, aware that a stumble could attract attention or injury. The night amplifies every risk, missteps, obstacles, and human predators become even more dangerous when obscured by darkness. You approach a small square. The flickering light of a lone torch illuminates the empty benches and shuttered stalls. Shadows pool along the edges, hiding possible threats. Bandits often choose open spaces at night to ambush the unobservant, calculating angles of approach and escape. You keep close to the walls, scanning every shadow, noting every potential escape route. Awareness is not optional, it is the difference between survival and disaster. Finally, the familiar sight of your home appears at the end of the lane. Relief is tempered by the knowledge that the night outside remains dangerous. Bandits, illness, and accidents wait silently, patient and unrelenting. You step inside, closing the door with care, heart still racing. Even within the walls of home, safety is fragile, temporary. In this medieval northern Italian town, each day and night is a battle of perception, caution, and luck. One lapse in attention, one mistake, could undo hours of careful vigilance in an instant. Survival is a continuous, exhausting exercise, a delicate balance of alertness, strategy, and fortune that can never be fully secured. The hour grows late, and the town seems to hold its breath under the weight of darkness. Streets that were bustling during the day are now deserted, yet danger is far from gone. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the cobblestones, and every alleyway appears deeper and more foreboding than it did in daylight. The quiet is deceptive. In this medieval northern Italian town, night does not bring safety, it brings a different kind of trial, one that tests both courage and perception. You move carefully along a narrow lane, feeling the uneven stones beneath your feet. The walls on either side lean inward, their plaster cracked and chipped, giving the street a claustrophobic feel. Rats scuttle through the refuse, disappearing into gaps between stones. The wind carries the scent of smoke, stale water, and rot. Even in an empty street, every movement is a potential hazard. One misstep could lead to a fall, draw attention from a hidden bandit, or bring you too close to the sick. Survival here requires constant calculation. Ahead, two figures emerge from the shadows. Hooded, knives glinting faintly in the torchlight, they lean casually against a wall, but their eyes are sharp and calculating. Bandits know the streets at night better than most, they exploit every shadow and every moment of distraction. You press yourself close to the opposite wall, feigning casual inspection of the cracked plaster. Every heartbeat echoes in your chest, and your mind races, weighing every option. Confrontation is deadly, avoidance is paramount. Each step is deliberate, each breath carefully measured. The air carries the ever-present threat of disease. A woman leans against a doorway, trembling as she coughs violently. Her child peers from behind her skirts, eyes wide with fear. Even brief contact with the sick could bring illness home to your family, and the town offers no respite from this invisible danger. You adjust your cloak to cover your nose and mouth, moving swiftly yet cautiously to maintain distance. In this environment, vigilance is as crucial as speed or agility. Every step must be calculated to avoid both visible and invisible threats. A sudden noise shatters the quiet, the scuffle of two men grappling over a stolen coin purse. The sound is sharp in the stillness, and your pulse quickens. You duck behind a nearby barrel, waiting for the moment to continue. Even minor disturbances can escalate quickly, turning ordinary streets into scenes of violence. You inch forward, aware that a single miscalculation could have dire consequences. The town is a place where opportunity and danger exist side by side, often indistinguishably. The physical environment itself adds risk. An overturned cart lies in the street, its barrels crushed and spilling their contents. Rats dart among the debris, adding unpredictability. One wrong step could lead to injury or draw the attention of lurking bandits. The night magnifies every hazard, shadows conceal threats, darkness obscures obstacles, and ordinary debris becomes deadly. You navigate carefully, constantly reassessing the terrain, anticipating potential dangers, and noting escape routes. Finally, the familiar sight of your home appears at the end of the alley. Relief mingles with caution, for the town outside remains unpredictable and perilous. Bandits, illness, fires, and accidents wait silently, patient and relentless. You step inside, closing the door behind you, heart still racing from the vigilance required to navigate a few streets safely. Even within these walls, safety is provisional. The night stretches on, demanding constant awareness. In this medieval northern Italian town, life is fragile, and survival depends on perception, careful calculation, and a measure of luck that can never be fully guaranteed. Each day and night is a test, every moment a delicate balance between caution and necessity. The town is silent now, but silence is deceptive. Midnight stretches across the streets like a heavy blanket, hiding dangers that wait patiently in the shadows. Every alleyway and doorway could conceal bandits, thieves, or desperate townsfolk, and even familiar streets seem unfamiliar under the cover of darkness. Each step is a calculated risk, each movement a test of your awareness and agility. In this medieval northern Italian town, night is not a respite, it is another battlefield. You move carefully along a narrow lane, the uneven cobblestones shifting underfoot. The walls on either side lean inward, crumbling and scarred from years of neglect. Rats scurry through piles of refuse, disappearing into the shadows. The air carries a mix of smoke, stagnant water, and decay, reminding you that danger is not only human. Disease lurks invisibly in the night air, as deadly as any blade. One misstep, one careless breath, could bring sickness home to your family. You adjust your cloak to cover your nose and mouth, moving cautiously while keeping your senses alert to every sound and movement. Ahead, a figure emerges from the darkness, a man with a hood drawn low, knife at his side. He watches the street with a predator's patience. Bandits patrol these lanes at night, knowing that fear and darkness are their allies. You press close to the opposite wall, pretending to inspect a crack in the stone. Every heartbeat echoes in your chest, every thought is focused on survival. Confrontation is rarely survivable, avoidance is essential. You inch forward slowly, calculating distance, pace, and timing to ensure you remain unnoticed. The faint smell of smoke drifts through the alley. A nearby hearth has caught fire, or perhaps a building is burning. Fires spread rapidly in the densely packed town. People rush with buckets of water, some shouting, others frozen in fear. You keep your distance, observing the scene and noting possible escape routes. Awareness is your weapon, it allows you to move safely through chaos, minimizing risk while the town's dangers unfold around you. Even minor disturbances carry risk. A scuffle echoes from a nearby corner, two men grappling over a stolen coin purse. The noise is sudden and sharp, and your pulse races as you duck behind a barrel. In a town where vigilance is constant, even small events can escalate into lethal encounters. You wait, listening intently, before resuming your careful progress. Each movement is deliberate, each step measured. The night magnifies every danger, turning ordinary streets into hazardous terrain where survival depends on perception and quick thinking. The uneven streets present additional hazards. An overturned cart lies in the lane, its barrels crushed and spilling their contents across the stones. Rats scurry among the debris, creating both a physical obstacle and a source of potential disease. One misstep could lead to injury or attract attention from lurking predators. Darkness obscures the terrain, demanding constant reassessment and vigilance. You navigate slowly, noting every detail, anticipating potential threats, and planning multiple escape routes in case danger strikes. Finally, the familiar sight of your home appears at the end of the alley. Relief washes over you, but it is tempered by the knowledge that the town outside remains dangerous and unpredictable. Bandits, illness, fires, and accidents wait silently, ready to exploit any lapse in attention. You step inside, closing the door carefully, heart still racing. Even within the supposed safety of your home, vigilance cannot fully rest. In a medieval northern Italian town, life is fragile, and survival is a continuous, exhausting exercise in awareness, calculation, and luck. Each night and day is a test, every moment a reminder that one misstep can undo hours of careful navigation. The town at this hour feels suspended between reality and nightmare. Streets that seemed familiar in daylight now twist into corridors of uncertainty. Shadows stretch long and distort every shape, turning ordinary objects into potential threats. The air is thick with the smell of smoke, refuse, and disease. Every footstep, every breath, carries risk. In a medieval northern Italian town, night is not a reprieve, it is a trial, a gauntlet where survival depends on vigilance, strategy, and luck. You move along a narrow lane, pressing close to the wall, listening intently. The uneven cobblestones shift underfoot, making stealthy movement a challenge. Rats scurry through piles of trash, disappearing into hidden corners, while the faint rustle of animals alerts you to unseen movement. Even minor sounds, such as the wind rattling shutters or the creak of a door, demand attention. In this town, danger is both human and environmental. A stumble could draw unwanted attention, a misplaced step could lead to injury, and proximity to the sick could bring disease home to your family. Every moment is a negotiation with survival. Ahead, you see a figure leaning against a wall, hood drawn low, knife catching faint torchlight. Bandits take advantage of darkness, exploiting fear and uncertainty. You press closer to the opposite wall, pretending to inspect a crack in the stone while planning a safe route past. Confrontation is rarely survivable, avoidance and observation are paramount. Your heartbeat quickens, and your mind races through possible scenarios. One misstep could be fatal. The faint smell of smoke grows stronger. A fire has broken out nearby, whether by accident or design, you cannot tell. Flames flicker behind shutters, casting distorted shadows across the street. Townsfolk rush past, buckets in hand, some shouting warnings, others frozen in fear. Fires spread quickly in the narrow, closely packed streets, threatening homes, possessions, and lives alike. You keep your distance, noting possible escape routes while moving as efficiently as possible through the maze of hazards. Awareness is your shield. Even small disturbances pose great risk. From a nearby corner, a scuffle erupts, two men grappling over a stolen coin purse. The sound is jarring in the quiet night. You duck behind a barrel, waiting for the scene to resolve. Even minor events can escalate quickly into deadly encounters. Each movement must be deliberate, each step calculated. The night magnifies danger, shadows conceal threats, darkness hides obstacles, and ordinary objects can become lethal hazards. The streets themselves present a constant challenge. An overturned cart lies partially in the alley, barrels crushed and spilling contents across the stones. Rats scurry over the mess, adding both physical danger and potential disease. One wrong step could lead to injury or draw attention from hidden predators. You navigate carefully, noting exits, obstacles, and possible threats. The night demands constant reassessment of the environment, each step guided by both experience and instinct. Finally, the familiar sight of your home appears at the end of the alley. Relief floods you, tempered by the knowledge that the dangers outside remain. Bandits, illness, fires, and accidents wait silently, ready to strike at any lapse in attention. You step inside, closing the door with care, heart still racing. Even within these walls, safety is temporary. In a medieval northern Italian town, survival is a continuous exercise in vigilance, strategy, and fortune. Each day and night is a test, every moment a reminder that a single lapse could undo hours of careful attention. Life here is fragile, and even brief complacency can have fatal consequences. The town at night is a place of constant vigilance. Streets that seemed familiar by day twist into shadowed corridors where danger hides in every corner. Darkness warps perception, making ordinary objects and movements appear threatening. Every sound, the scuffle of rats, the distant bark of a dog, the creak of a shutter, demands attention. In this medieval northern Italian town, the night is a test, a gauntlet of threats both seen and unseen. You move cautiously along a narrow alley, pressing close to the wall. The uneven cobblestones make every step precarious. Rats dart through refuse-strewn corners, disappearing into gaps between stones. The air is thick with smoke, the odor of stagnant water, and the faint stench of decay. The invisible threat of disease lingers in every breath. One careless step or misjudged move could lead to infection or injury. Awareness and caution are your only defenses. Ahead, a figure emerges from the shadows. Hooded, knife in hand, he leans against the wall, eyes scanning for opportunity. Bandits patrol these lanes at night, exploiting fear and darkness as allies. You press against the opposite wall, pretending to inspect a crack in the stone while calculating every move. Confrontation here is rarely survivable, avoidance is essential. Your pulse races, your mind assessing every possibility. One mistake could be fatal. The smell of smoke intensifies as you advance. A fire has broken out nearby, either accidental or deliberate. Flames flicker behind shuttered windows, casting distorted shadows on the street. Townsfolk rush past with buckets, shouting and scrambling to contain the blaze. Fires spread rapidly in tightly packed streets, threatening homes, possessions, and lives. You maintain distance, noting escape routes while carefully navigating past hazards. Awareness is your shield in the chaos. Minor disturbances carry amplified risk. From a nearby alley, a scuffle erupts, two men wrestling over a stolen coin purse. The noise is sharp in the silent night, forcing you to pause behind a barrel. Even small events can escalate into lethal encounters. Each step must be deliberate, each motion calculated. Darkness magnifies danger, concealing both human predators and environmental hazards. Ordinary obstacles, the overturned carts, broken barrels, and refuse, become treacherous under night's cover. The streets themselves are obstacles. An overturned cart blocks part of the alley, barrels crushed and spilling their contents across the stones. Rats scurry among the mess, adding physical danger and a source of disease. One wrong step could attract attention or cause injury. You navigate carefully, noting exits, obstacles, and lurking threats. Night demands constant reassessment, with each movement guided by both instinct and observation. Finally, your home comes into view. Relief washes over you, but the dangers outside remain. Bandits, disease, fires, and accidents wait silently, ready to strike at the slightest lapse in attention. You step inside, closing the door with care, heart still pounding from the constant vigilance required. Even within these walls, safety is provisional. In a medieval northern Italian town, survival is a relentless exercise in alertness, calculation, and luck. Each day and night is a test, every moment a reminder that a single misstep can undo hours of careful planning. Life here is fragile, and even brief complacency can be deadly. The town at night feels like a labyrinth, twisting familiar streets into corridors of uncertainty and hidden danger. Darkness magnifies every obstacle, every shadow, turning the ordinary into the threatening. Even the most familiar alley seems alien under the cloak of night. Every sound, a rat scurrying, a distant bark, the creak of a shutter, demands attention, for in this medieval northern Italian town, the night is alive with both seen and unseen threats. You move cautiously along a narrow lane, pressing close to the wall, feet landing carefully on uneven cobblestones. The air is thick with smoke, the pungent smell of stagnant water, and the faint odor of decay. Rats dart through piles of refuse, disappearing into dark gaps. The invisible threat of disease lingers with every breath. One misstep, one moment of carelessness, could bring illness or injury home to your family. Survival requires constant awareness and cautious calculation. Ahead, a hooded figure leans against a wall, a knife glinting faintly in the dim torchlight. Bandits exploit darkness, preying on fear and hesitation. You press against the opposite wall, feigning inspection of the crumbling plaster while calculating each step to avoid notice. Confrontation is rarely survivable, avoidance and patience are the only tools that guarantee even a chance of survival. Your heart pounds as you consider every possible scenario. One wrong move could prove fatal. Smoke drifts from a nearby alley, carrying the sharp scent of fire. Whether accidental or deliberate, the flames illuminate distorted shadows on the street. Townsfolk rush past, shouting and carrying buckets, trying to contain the blaze. Fires spread rapidly in these densely packed streets, threatening homes, possessions, and lives. You keep a safe distance, planning your route carefully, aware that awareness is your most reliable weapon in the chaos. Even minor disturbances escalate quickly in this environment. From a nearby corner, a scuffle erupts, two men grappling over a stolen coin purse. The sudden noise makes your pulse spike, and you duck behind a barrel, waiting for the commotion to subside. Every step must be deliberate, every movement precise. Darkness amplifies hazards, hiding both human predators and environmental obstacles. Ordinary debris, the overturned carts, broken barrels, and scattered refuse, becomes treacherous under night's cover. The streets themselves are dangerous terrain. An overturned cart blocks part of the lane, barrels crushed and spilling their contents. Rats dart over the mess, adding another layer of hazard. One misstep could result in injury or draw unwanted attention from lurking predators. You navigate slowly, constantly reassessing the surroundings, planning escape routes, and adjusting to unexpected threats. Night demands unceasing vigilance, blending instinct with careful observation. Finally, your home emerges at the end of the alley. Relief floods you, yet the dangers of the town are ever present. Bandits, disease, fires, and accidents wait silently, patient and unrelenting. You step inside, closing the door carefully, heart racing from the sustained vigilance required to traverse even a short distance safely. Within these walls, safety is temporary. In a medieval northern Italian town, survival is an unending exercise in awareness, planning, and luck. Each day and night tests your endurance, every moment reminds you that one lapse can erase all careful preparation. Life here is fragile, precarious, and relentless. The midnight streets are deceptive in their stillness. The absence of daily noise makes every sound sharper, every shadow more menacing. Darkness turns familiar streets into a maze of uncertainty, where even a simple step can bring danger. The town sleeps only partially, bandits, desperate townsfolk, and hidden hazards wait, patient and unyielding. In a medieval northern Italian town, night is not a respite, it is a battlefield where vigilance is the only shield. You move cautiously along a narrow alley, pressing close to the wall. Cobblestones are uneven beneath your feet, shifting slightly with each step. Rats scuttle over discarded refuse, disappearing into cracks and crevices. The air is thick with smoke, the tang of stagnant water, and the faint stench of decay. Disease lingers invisibly, as deadly as any human predator. A single misstep or careless breath could bring illness to your family. Awareness, calculation, and caution are your only defenses. Ahead, a figure emerges from the shadows. His hood is drawn low, a knife catching faint torchlight. Bandits know these streets intimately, exploiting darkness and fear. You press against the opposite wall, feigning inspection of the cracked plaster while plotting a safe route past. Confrontation is rarely survivable, avoidance is essential. Your pulse races as your mind races through scenarios. One wrong move could be fatal. The faint smell of smoke grows stronger as you approach. A fire has broken out nearby, whether accidental or deliberate, you cannot tell. Flames flicker behind shuttered windows, casting distorted shadows on the walls. Townsfolk rush past, shouting, carrying buckets, trying to control the blaze. Fires spread quickly in these densely packed streets, threatening homes, possessions, and lives. You keep your distance, noting exits and potential obstacles, moving deliberately to minimize risk. Awareness is your most effective weapon. Minor disturbances escalate quickly here. From a nearby corner, a scuffle erupts, two men grappling over a stolen coin purse. The sudden noise spikes your heart rate, and you duck behind a barrel, waiting for the commotion to subside. Every step must be deliberate, every motion precise. Darkness magnifies hazards, concealing both human and environmental threats. Even ordinary debris, the overturned carts, broken barrels, scattered refuse, becomes dangerous under night's cover. The streets themselves present constant challenges. An overturned cart blocks part of the alley, barrels crushed and spilling their contents. Rats dart among the mess, adding both physical danger and risk of disease. One misstep could cause injury or attract the attention of hidden predators. You navigate carefully, reassessing the surroundings, planning escape routes, and adjusting to unexpected threats. Night demands unceasing vigilance, blending instinct with deliberate observation. Finally, the sight of your home appears at the end of the alley. Relief washes over you, tempered by the knowledge that the town outside remains perilous. Bandits, disease, fires, and accidents wait silently, patient and relentless. You step inside, closing the door carefully, heart still pounding from the vigilance required to traverse even a short distance safely. Even within these walls, safety is provisional. In a medieval northern Italian town, survival is a continuous exercise in awareness, planning, and fortune. Each day and night tests your endurance, every moment reminds you that a single lapse could undo all careful preparation. Life here is fragile, precarious, and unrelenting. The town at night is alive in its own, silent way. Darkness stretches across streets and alleys, distorting shapes and hiding dangers. The familiar paths of daylight are now corridors of uncertainty, where every shadow could conceal a thief, a bandit, or a stray animal carrying disease. The faintest sound, a scuffle of rats, a distant bark, the creak of a shutter, demands your full attention. In this medieval northern Italian town, night is not a time for rest, it is a continuous test of perception and survival. You move carefully along a narrow alley, pressing close to the wall, feet landing lightly on uneven cobblestones. The air is thick with smoke, the pungent smell of stagnant water, and the faint stench of rot. Rats dart through piles of refuse, disappearing into hidden crevices. The invisible threat of illness lingers in every breath. One misstep or careless moment could bring disease to your family. Awareness and caution are as crucial as speed or strength in these streets. Ahead, a hooded figure leans against a wall, a knife catching faint torchlight. Bandits know the night well, exploiting fear and darkness to strike at those unprepared. You press closer to the opposite wall, pretending to inspect the cracked plaster while calculating your route. Confrontation is rarely survivable, avoidance and patience are essential. Your heartbeat quickens as your mind evaluates possible scenarios. One mistake could prove fatal. The faint smell of smoke grows stronger. A fire burns somewhere nearby, either by accident or design. Flames flicker behind shuttered windows, casting twisting shadows across the street. Townsfolk rush past, shouting and carrying buckets, attempting to contain the blaze. Fires spread quickly in the tightly packed streets, threatening homes, possessions, and lives alike. You maintain a safe distance, observing possible escape routes and hazards. Awareness is your greatest weapon. Minor disturbances escalate rapidly here. A scuffle erupts from a nearby corner, two men grappling over a stolen coin purse. The noise makes your pulse spike, forcing you to duck behind a barrel. Even small disturbances can escalate into deadly encounters. Each step must be deliberate, each motion precise. Darkness magnifies every hazard, shadows conceal predators, ordinary debris becomes dangerous, and unseen obstacles challenge your agility. The streets themselves are treacherous. An overturned cart blocks part of the alley, barrels crushed and spilling their contents across the stones. Rats scurry over the debris, adding both a physical hazard and a potential vector for disease. One wrong step could cause injury or attract attention from hidden threats. You navigate carefully, constantly reassessing your surroundings, planning escape routes, and adjusting to unexpected dangers. Night demands constant vigilance, combining instinct with deliberate observation. Finally, your home comes into view at the end of the alley. Relief washes over you, tempered by the knowledge that the dangers outside remain. Bandits, disease, fires, and accidents wait silently, patient and unrelenting. You step inside, closing the door with care, heart still racing from the vigilance required to traverse even a short distance safely. Within these walls, safety is temporary. In this medieval northern Italian town, survival is an ongoing exercise in attention, planning, and fortune. Each day and night tests endurance, each moment reminds you that a single lapse could erase all careful preparation. Life here is fragile, precarious, and relentless. The midnight streets are silent, yet the stillness is deceptive. Darkness stretches across the town, transforming familiar lanes into corridors of uncertainty. Every shadow hides a potential threat, every creak of wood or rustle of rats could signal danger. The town is alive in its own, sinister way. In a medieval northern Italian town, night is not a time for rest, it is a relentless test of alertness, strategy, and endurance. You move carefully along a narrow alley, pressing close to the walls, feet landing softly on the uneven cobblestones. Rats scurry over piles of refuse, disappearing into cracks and holes. The air is thick with smoke, the smell of stagnant water, and the faint stench of rot. Disease lingers invisibly, as dangerous as any human predator. One misstep, one careless breath, could bring illness to your family. Awareness and caution are essential. Every movement, every decision is weighted by the risk of harm. A hooded figure emerges from the shadows ahead, knife glinting faintly in torchlight. Bandits know these streets intimately, exploiting fear and darkness. You press against the opposite wall, pretending to inspect the cracked plaster while calculating a safe path past. Confrontation here is rarely survivable, avoidance is paramount. Your heart races as you anticipate potential outcomes. One wrong move could prove fatal. The faint odor of smoke grows stronger as you progress. A fire burns nearby, whether by accident or design. Flames flicker behind shuttered windows, casting shadows that twist unnaturally. Townsfolk rush past, shouting, carrying buckets to fight the blaze. Fires spread quickly in densely packed streets, threatening homes, goods, and lives. You keep a safe distance, observing exits and noting potential hazards, aware that awareness is your most effective defense. Even minor disturbances can escalate rapidly. A scuffle erupts nearby, two men wrestling over a stolen coin purse. The sound jolts your pulse, and you duck behind a barrel, waiting for the commotion to subside. Darkness magnifies danger, shadows conceal human predators, ordinary debris becomes hazardous, and unseen obstacles can trip or injure you. Each step must be deliberate, each motion calculated. The streets themselves pose hazards. An overturned cart blocks part of the lane, barrels crushed and spilling their contents across the stones. Rats dart over the debris, creating both physical danger and risk of disease. One misstep could cause injury or draw attention from lurking predators. You navigate carefully, assessing surroundings, noting escape routes, and adjusting to every unforeseen danger. Night demands constant vigilance, blending instinct with methodical observation. Finally, the sight of your home emerges at the alley's end. Relief floods you, tempered by the knowledge that the dangers outside remain. Bandits, disease, fires, and accidents wait silently, patient and relentless. You step inside, closing the door carefully, heart still racing. Within these walls, safety is temporary. Survival in a medieval northern Italian town is a continuous exercise in attention, calculation, and luck. Each night and day tests endurance, every moment reminds you that a single lapse can erase all careful preparation. Life here is fragile, precarious, and unforgiving. The town sleeps fitfully, but the night itself is alive with threats. Darkness stretches across every alley, twisting familiar streets into corridors of uncertainty. Every shadow conceals a potential danger, bandits, thieves, or even the spread of disease carried silently in the air. The absence of daily noise sharpens every sound, the scurrying of rats, the distant bark of a dog, the creak of wooden shutters. In this medieval northern Italian town, night is not a time for rest, it is a continuous trial of vigilance, reflexes, and endurance. You move cautiously along a narrow lane, pressed close to the wall, feet landing lightly on uneven cobblestones. Rats dart through piles of refuse, vanishing into cracks between stones. The air is thick with smoke, the smell of stagnant water, and the faint stench of rot. Disease lurks invisibly, as dangerous as any human predator. One careless step or breath could bring illness home to your family. Survival requires constant calculation, attention, and precaution. Every movement is deliberate, every decision weighted by risk. Ahead, a hooded figure leans against a wall, knife catching faint torchlight. Bandits exploit darkness and fear, preying on anyone who appears distracted or weak. You press against the opposite wall, pretending to inspect the cracked plaster while plotting a path past. Confrontation is rarely survivable, avoidance is the only true defense. Your heart pounds as your mind evaluates potential scenarios. One wrong move could be fatal. Smoke drifts from a nearby alley, carrying the sharp odor of fire. Whether accidental or deliberate, the flames illuminate twisting shadows on the walls. Townsfolk rush past with buckets, shouting and attempting to contain the blaze. Fires spread quickly in the densely packed streets, threatening homes, goods, and lives. You maintain distance, noting escape routes and obstacles, moving deliberately through chaos. Awareness is your most effective shield. Even minor disturbances carry high risk. From a nearby corner, a scuffle erupts, two men grappling over a stolen coin purse. The sudden noise spikes your pulse, forcing you to duck behind a barrel. Darkness magnifies danger, shadows hide predators, ordinary debris becomes treacherous, and unseen obstacles can trip or injure. Each step is deliberate, each motion calculated. The streets themselves are full of hazards. An overturned cart blocks part of the lane, barrels crushed and spilling their contents across the stones. Rats scurry over the mess, adding physical danger and potential vectors of disease. One misstep could result in injury or draw attention from lurking threats. You navigate carefully, constantly reassessing the surroundings, planning escape routes, and adjusting to unexpected dangers. Night demands unceasing vigilance, blending instinct with meticulous observation. Finally, the sight of your home appears at the alley's end. Relief washes over you, tempered by the knowledge that the dangers outside remain. Bandits, disease, fires, and accidents wait silently, patient and relentless. You step inside, closing the door with care, heart still racing from the vigilance required to traverse even a short distance safely. Within these walls, safety is provisional. In a medieval northern Italian town, survival is an ongoing exercise in awareness, calculation, and fortune. Each night and day tests endurance, every moment reminds you that a single lapse can undo all careful preparation. Life here is fragile, precarious, and relentless. The first light of dawn begins to creep over the rooftops, pale and tentative, as if the town itself hesitates to welcome the day. The streets that were treacherous at night are now revealed in full light, yet danger has not disappeared, only shifted. Bandits retreat into hiding, fires smolder, and the sick still cling to doorways. In a medieval northern Italian town, survival is a constant negotiation between daylight and darkness, between vigilance and exhaustion. Each day begins not with safety, but with the fragile hope of continued life. You step outside cautiously, your senses still heightened from the night's ordeal. The cobblestones are damp with dew, uneven and treacherous, and refuse from the previous night litters the streets. Rats scuttle across your path, oblivious to the rising sun. The air is thick with the lingering smell of smoke, smoke that had billowed from the fires that threatened homes and livelihoods overnight. Even in daylight, disease remains an invisible predator, ready to strike the unwary or the careless. The night may have passed, but the town still breathes danger in every corner. A group of townsfolk emerges from their homes, eyes wary, bodies tense. The night has left its mark on everyone. Conversations are hushed, movements calculated. Every person carries the memory of vulnerability, of the realization that one wrong step can erase years of careful living. Merchants sweep their stalls, checking for damage, while parents gather their children close, still cautious of unseen threats. The day brings light, but also a reminder that survival is never guaranteed. The streets begin to stir more fully. A cart rattles over the stones, pulled by a weary mule, and the driver glances warily down the alleyways. Bandits and thieves are less brazen in the daylight, but vigilance remains necessary. Even minor distractions, a stray dog, a loose barrel, the sound of a cart while tipping, can create chaos in the narrow streets. You navigate slowly, noting escape routes, scanning corners, and keeping a mental map of hazards that might otherwise be overlooked. Survival is a delicate balance of observation, caution, and quick thinking. You pause at the corner near your home, looking down the streets you traversed in darkness. The experience of the night lingers in your mind, the knife-wielding figures, the overturned carts, the scuffles over coin purses, the fires, and the invisible threat of disease. All these dangers are now bathed in sunlight, yet their lessons remain clear. In this town, life is tenuous, it is a continuous exercise in vigilance and decision-making. The slightest lapse can have consequences that ripple far beyond a single moment. Inside your home, your family stirs. The relief of seeing loved ones safe is tempered by the understanding that the night could return, and that each day must be approached with caution. Food must be rationed carefully, water drawn and boiled, and the sick kept separate when possible. Plans for the day are made not with leisure in mind, but with survival as the priority. Even within the walls of home, the town's dangers influence every decision. As the sun rises higher, casting warm light over the rooftops, there is a fragile sense of calm. The night has passed, but the memory of danger lingers. You have survived, but survival is not permanence, it is a temporary reprieve, earned through vigilance, calculation, and a measure of luck. In a medieval northern Italian town, life is a fragile thread, easily broken by bandits, disease, accidents, or misjudgment. Each day and night is a test, and each moment demands attention. Survival is not guaranteed, it is a relentless exercise in caution, awareness, and resilience. And yet, despite the constant threats, you continue, to move, to breathe, to endure, and to hope that another day, however perilous, might be survived. The streets are slowly coming to life, but you know that night will return, shadows will stretch, and the delicate balance between life and death will resume. In this town, every moment is precious, every breath a victory, and every safe return home a reminder of just how tenuous survival truly is.